So, Greater Manchester, did you want to start first?
I'm going to.
Yeah, great.
I'm standing here so I can control the slides, but I just wanted to give a bit of context to the Greater Manchester Youth Combined Authority. My name's Liz Harding. I work for Youth Focus North West. We're the youth work unit in the North West of England, and we run a group called Euphoria, which is works with BYC, and it's the youth forum for the North West of England. And it was two members of that forum, two members from Salford Youth Council, who actually wrote to me and said, we know there's going to be a mayor in Greater Manchester and we want a voice. So it was an interesting thing for us to do, to actually respond to young people rather than being the ones going and saying, hey, this is going to happen, would you like to be involved? We actually had to think about how would we support those young people to get what they wanted. And we work with colleagues across the Greater Manchester region, the youth workers, and the young people and the youth workers together developed a campaign that we took out to all the candidates for the mayoralty. They met all the candidates. They held a youth hustings, which was run entirely by young people, and supported a number of events to engage wider groups to try and get them aware that there was going to be a mayor, and actually as young people they should have a voice in that new governance arrangement for Greater Manchester. So devolution in that sense offered us an opportunity. So as you've heard, the Mayor, Andy Burnham, once he became Mayor, pledged in his manifesto that the Youth Combined Authority would be representative of all the boroughs of Greater Manchester and to reflect its full diversity. It's a youth work process, and the Youth Combined Authority is delivered by Youth Focus North West, but with support from youth workers from its member organisations. We could not do this on our own, and without youth work supporting those young people, both in their education so that they can actually participate, have the confidence to participate, but also just in practical ways, getting them to meetings, supporting them to get the agendas, to put things on the agenda. Without youth workers, this would not happen. So, in February this year, we had our first meeting. So I'm going to hand over now to Jacob and Emily, who are representing the 40 young people who make up the Youth Combined Authority.
Well, like I was saying, it's incredible that in January this year we didn't even have a Youth Combined Authority. And
then in February we were born, and it's been with the support of our youth workers, Katrina and Paul, that we've been able to take part in so many things.
A lot's happened in 8 months. Only a few days after our first ever meeting, members Mia and Nathan attended the first Reform Board meeting. We were invited by Andy Burnham to speak and share our views on the Curriculum for Life.
In March, our 2 working groups were established, and only a month later the Curriculum for Life group developed a definition of Curriculum for Life, meaning we're all working in unity across Greater Manchester and for the first time ever have a shared goal and vision.
We fed into the Life Readiness Survey, and some members attended a consultation to give our views on a really important topic, preventing hateful extremism and promoting social cohesion.
In June, members Jess, Samaya, Emily and I had the opportunity to meet with Chukra Moona MP to discuss the really important issue of social integration and social isolation.
A set of work experience standards has been constructed and sent out for wider consultation to schools across Greater Manchester. In July, one of our members, Beth, travelled all the way to Westminster, here, to represent us and feedback our views on the work experience to the British Youth Council Select Committee.
Then just 3 days later, members of the GMYCA Health Working Group and young people from Greater Manchester organisations visited Manchester Central Library for the Greater Manchester Young People's Health Summit with all the big decision makers in Greater Manchester Health.
Jacob and I had the opportunity to sit on an interview panel for the Combined Authority's new Career Hub leader, giving young people a say and input on who will be leading the Greater Manchester Career Hub.
And again, in August, Youth Combined Authority members were represented on the Reform Board. Our members, Liam, Bradley and Beth, sat at the decision-making table to share the Curriculum for Life definition and advise on the work experience standards.
In September, Jacob and I attended the Convert Trip to the North in Newcastle, where Andy Burnham spoke about the importance of involving young people and how their communities were run.
We gave input into the Greater Manchester Homeless Strategy and looked at ideas to combat homelessness. We also said what we thought should be taught in schools. We had the opportunity to make this presentation to the Mayor, Andy Burnham.
October saw us comment on the Greater Manchester Cultural Strategy. We explored what we think culture is and what we think the culture of Greater Manchester is.
We got involved through our youth service and because we're in the Youth Council. Our youth workers have helped us prepare, encouraged us and supported us to make sure we have all the information that we need.
Alongside this, we wouldn't even have a youth council without our youth workers. They run it, they get us where we need to go, and they just generally support us in anything we need.
I think that a really good summary of the difference that youth work has definitely made for me and Emily is here, which is in all of the packs, which says youth work can unlock young people's potential, helping them develop voice, influence and their place in society. Our youth council and our youth workers by extension have been so important in that, and we wouldn't be here if it weren't for them.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Brilliant. Thank you ever so much. There'll be opportunity for questions in just a moment. But before that, I'd like to introduce Andy Parrott, the Head of Planning and Community for the Premier League. Many thanks for joining us today, Andy.
Very much. And thanks for your time today. I'm really humbled and privileged to be up here talking to you and can really feel the energy in the room. It's palpable how much people care about young people and their potential, as Jacob just mentioned. So one of my aims today is to hopefully share some of the experience that we've had over the past 10 to 12 years and to demonstrate that we're fully committed to working with you and working with the sector to continue to invest in young people and their potential. Also really keen to grow what we do and to collaborate. So if people want to follow up with me afterwards, I'd be really keen. My email address is quite easy to remember. I've got a not dodgy surname. My surname's Parrott, so it's aparrott@premierleague.com.
Genius.
But you just need, the office always do that when I have to give it on the phone as well. But just remember it's got double T, so that's an important difference. So I just want to talk you through some of our community work. I'm going to focus on one programme in particular. For those who are Twitter followers and so on, @PL Communities can help bring this to life for you as we go through. The image that we've got there, Deli Alley, visiting a KICS project in North London on the Ferry Lane estate in Haringey. It was actually celebrating the 10-year anniversary of that programme, and the area, certainly the area that they're playing on, had been transformed with a new 3G AstroTurf pitch as well, and I'll come back to tell a bit more about that story. I'm going to not dwell on this for very long, but this is just to try and summarise our work that we do across communities. So first and foremost, we know that we have brand power, and that's important in young people's lives and can act as a draw. So we want to use our ability to connect with young people and to help them realise the potential. The image in the top right-hand corner there is of our Premier League and BT Disability Sport programme. And we're doing a huge amount to support young people who are keen on sport and have disabilities. Everything from football teams for young people with Down syndrome to power chair football, football for people with visual impairments and so on and so forth. So if you're working with anybody with any of those disabilities and so on, have a think about connecting with your Premier League football club if you're lucky enough to have one in your region. We use our pulling power to inspire ambition in communities and schools. I'm not going to dwell on it for very long, but again, just want to mention a programme that we've got called Premier League Primary Stars. We're working with 16,000 schools, which is almost 2/3 of all primary schools up and down the country. It's all absolutely free resources and talks and uses the power of sport, football, particularly in terms of PSHE, to tell those life lessons. So get on plprimarystars.com for free resources there if you're interested. The real focus today is going to be on the two guys in the bottom right-hand corner. The top one's on the right-hand side is a Premier League footballer called Wilfred Zaha. And the one on the left, who actually is the real star, is a guy called George Henry, who's a youth worker in Croydon. And I'll come back to talk much more about them. The final part of our strategy that's really important, it was interesting to hear about the importance of facilities and venues and so on, is that we're committed to investing in community facilities up and down the country. The image there is an example in North London of a place called Market Road in Islington. It's 2 huge third-generation AstroTurf pitches that we funded. But Arsenal and the community also are starting to invest much more in local ball court facilities, which are right on the doorstep of local communities too. So that's my little pitch of what we do in the round. I'm actually going to focus on the Kicks programme and telling that story in particular, so it's one of our programmes. It was born in 2006, actually after an argument we were having with the police. And we thought that the guy on the left-hand side was Deputy Commissioner at the time. And he's a guy called Tim Godwin. He's now the chair of the Premier League Charity Fund. He's a really inspiring guy. The one argument that I had with him was that he wanted us to work together on a diversionary youth project. And we didn't think that was going to inspire young people, calling it something along those lines. So we actually went out and worked with the Tottenham Hotspur Foundation. And the guy on the right-hand side is a guy called Richard Allicock. And he was a volunteer at the time on the Ferry Lane estate up in North London. And he'd seen his fair share of troubles. I won't go into them. But he's seen his fair share of troubles. And he brought together a group of young people aged between 16 and 20, who were kind of the local leaders, in inverted commas, on the estate. And we had a meeting with them in Burger King. And they were so crystal clear on what they wanted from us. Number one, they wanted trust. Absolutely crystal clear. They wanted to be able to trust us. They didn't want another project, in their words, that would come and go out of their lives. And it was just very, very clear that had to stay. There was trust issues with the police and so on and so forth as well. The second key aspect for them was that they wanted to start positive. So not start, and we've had this conversation to a certain extent in the room. We wanted to start by talking about young people's potential, and then get into diversionary type stuff thereafter if it was relevant, and not to prejudge them. The other element was that they wanted to own their project too. So the importance of youth voice, youth consultation was something that was with us right from the outset. So 12 years on from that first project, I'll talk a little bit more about how it's grown, but we targeted initially 12 to 18-year-olds, but we found we had queues of little brothers and little sisters wanting to get involved as well. So it was absolutely need-led that we extended that provision to 8 to 19. We've got other programmes that that help support older young people as well. We call it the transfer window as opposed to transition. Flexible youth-led model. We've got a vast range of sports that we do. Football is clearly a big hook. It's where our expertise is. But we've got over 30 other sports that we're delivering via the club community organisations, and a vast range of personal and social development workshops that we deliver. Place and time targeted was absolutely critical when we started with the Kicks programme. We got together lots of interested parties locally, whether it was youth services, youth offending teams, the police and so on, and we did mapping exercises. What we didn't want to do was parachute in and blow decent provision out of the water with our kind of brand power that we have, but we just wanted to complement. The other key aspect was the time of delivery. Again, part of the conversation that we wanted always on provision as opposed to the 2 or 3 weeks in the summer holidays or whatever it might be. So the classic model, if you like, and it's developed since then, was 48 weeks of the year and up to 3 nights a week in one area in particular. And it really allowed for that development of relationships. And I always remember a Fulham coach saying it becomes like family ties. And that was just so important and so prevalent for us. The other key point is that we deliver a huge amount of our provision on Friday and Saturday evenings, which is a tricky thing for getting people to work on Friday and Saturday nights. But this year we'll deliver 16,000 sessions on Friday and Saturday nights. And we've been monitoring our provision since 2006, and by far and away the most popular evenings. Young people vote with their feet. They turn up more often than any other day of the week on Friday and Saturday evenings. So that's something that we're really continuing to try and push as we go along. what else to mention from there? I think I'll come on to mention the rest of it in other slides. This is a bit of a sparse slide. These were the 4 clubs who we piloted with back in 2006. So there was Tottenham Hotspur in Haringey, Fulham were working in Lambeth, Brentford in Ealing, and Manchester City were all operating in a place called Platt Lane, which is on the borders of Moss Side, Fallowfield, and I think it's Hume, if I get the pronunciation correct. We grew really quickly, and now we've got 69 professional football clubs up and down the country. So from Newcastle United to Plymouth Argyle, Norwich City to Swansea, there's kind of length and breadth of the country going on. And we've got over 800 venues where we now deliver the KICS programme. So we've got scale, and that's come with its own challenges in terms of ensuring quality across the way, from our highest performing programme to our least high performing. We are on their case to try and up standards, and partnership working is absolutely critical to that. The other side that we've got on this is the brand power. So the likes of Arsenal, Manchester United have no problem attracting young people into their programmes. But some of the, I'm not going to name any names just in case they're supporters. But what we do as the Premier League is give them our brand as well and say, pop that Premier League, it's the Premier League KICS programme on top of it. Actually, I will mention one. I'm a Sunderland fan, so I'm from the North East, and we're in League One at the minute. But so it's perhaps a bonus for them that we've got that on there. The next slide is a action shot from the Under-16s final from the Premier League KICS Cup, which took place in Nottingham. We helped support and fund that pitch there, which is a third-generation AstroTurf pitch, a place called Nottingham Rec, and Nottingham Forest, again, non-Premier League club. We fund them to deliver work from that venue, and there's a big community hub alongside it, changing rooms and so on and so forth. We've helped build 747 pitches to date, and 3,000 grass pitches we've helped improve as well. Competition's really important to young people. Again, we're a football competition, so we quite like it too. So we really encourage that and try and build that into our programmes. This is just to help demonstrate the scale of that delivery. So I think there were 17 pitches in operation on the day with over 100 teams from up and down the country. And actually the part of the picture I wanted to show was the buses lined up down the side. So there's young people young people from Plymouth who got very, very early to get up to Nottingham. But it was a great celebration, and just hearing the accents from around the country is the best bit for me. And young people coming together, it gets really competitive towards the end, you can imagine. It's quite tense, but actually it's a real positive spirit, and some of the young people often don't go out with their communities, often, if at all. This is just a few pictures to whistle through. So this is just an example of other provision, just to demonstrate we really do more than football. Boxing's really popular, basketball, but a real wide range of different sports that we provide. We've also developed another programme, the Premier League Girls Football Programme, which does what it says on the tin. Ultimately, feedback from the girls and young women on our programmes was that they wanted their own space and they wanted their own provision. So we developed their own programme, and we get 22,000 girls, predominantly teenagers, involved in that programme every year. The next one, because I'm conscious I've thrown out a few numbers, and numbers just blur into the ether when you start mentioning tens of thousands and millions. But the KICS programme alone, this is, I was going to call it Highbury. This is the Emirates Stadium from Arsenal, which holds about 60,000 people. KICS engages 60,000 young people every year, so that's full to capacity, and that's just the boys. If you took half the stadium out and told them to go off and play some football elsewhere, and invited another 30,000 in, that would be the girls that we've got engaged on KICS and the girls' football programme. So it just is a much better visual for us than just reeling out the numbers. This is George Henry and the Wilfred Zaha story. Remember, this is about George, not Wilf, who's a Premier League footballer, but obviously it helps grab the media attention for us and helps us get good publicity like this. Hopefully this works. I'm hoping you could just about hear that at the back, but obviously the video just tells the story much better than I can. That said, there was a few photographs taken that night, which I just wanted to mention too. This guy's a guy called Michael Lacey. After he's the kind of head coach for the session. but also he's now been trained in lots more than just football coaching. He's also had various other training courses that we deliver across the network and in partnership with others, such as conflict resolution, de-escalation, critical incident training with the police that we felt was really important, and youth voice as well. We are working with NYA as well to introduce more and more youth work qualifications right across the piece. So we do level 1 and level 2 introduction to youth work and youth work in practice as well. So every year we want to have at least 50 through a cohort, so we continue to grow the expertise on that front. George also has gone on to become more than just the kicks coach that he is there, so he was a sessional worker to start with. He's gone on to get his degree in sports science, and now he's just, after a slight loan period with Wandsworth Borough Council, he's come back to Crystal Palace. He's a programme manager for their Breaking the Cycle programme, which is a targeted programme that works with children in need, with young people who are on the gangs matrix as well. So really a good journey from his point of view, but there are, I don't want to belittle George, but we've got more and more examples of local young people who are fantastic role models, who can work together with older inspirational people locally as well to provide a positive influence for young people. I'm not going to dwell on this particularly, but we've really been trying to celebrate youth work and the coaches within our programme. So this is our Kicks Heroes programme, and this is all about Michael Lacey and his progression from being a volunteer as well through to the inspiring stories that he's got. The picture on the right hand side just shows that we get our young people involved in much more than just the football provision. That's, I think, the 16 youngsters on the Run London 5K where they did some fundraising for local charities. Another picture from that evening, a bunch of likely lads who are clearly having a good time and enjoying themselves. They probably get stereotyped on their way home. We've had lots of issues with dispersal, as it's called, from some of our programmes, especially when you've got 70 to 100 on some of the bigger programmes. And we've had to kind of stagger it so that just young people who are walking home aren't seen as causing antisocial behaviour. The really good next picture is the same group of young people on our Premier League Enterprise programme who, it's like a Dragon's Den basically. We give them a real business problem, but we link it to football. So it might be, how do you get more diverse supporters in a football stadium, for instance? And they've got to pitch that to, in this case, one of the former Dragons as well, Thetis, so it's really quite intense for them. On another note, this is imagery from that Kicks Cup where I showed you where all the pitches. We also use it as the opportunity to deliver workshops. So you can see all the different football kits together from around the country. And that was a talk from a former offender on knife crime and drugs and alcohol and so on and so forth. But we also do lots of celebratory stuff as well. So we've got the Rainbow Laces campaign coming up in November soon, which is all about celebrating diversity in LGBT communities in particular. So we'll be rolling that out across our programmes. I put one more video in. I wasn't going to, so I'm hoping you can hear it back, but it involves some of our practitioners from Leicester, and I thought it was only appropriate, and I think it's a really good example of some of the more targeted work that we do as well, because Kicks is universal provision ultimately, and we know that we've been in a really privileged position to be able to continue to fund that since 2006. We've seen partnership funding come and go many times, but we don't need a theory of change, and we don't need a logic model. We absolutely believe in the work, and we're going to continue to do it. We've got all that stuff, but it's not necessarily needed to unlock our funding to make this work. So, yeah, one more video. Hopefully you can hear this.
Communities across the country face a wide range of challenges. Antisocial behaviour, gun and knife crime, and the
I think we would have cut that because he was basically doing the party line, but then because that happened, we had to leave it in. I've been given the time signal, so I'm gonna finish off. The last two slides I'll do in 30 seconds. This slide is just to say partnership working remains a priority for us at a national and local level. Really keen to collaborate if anybody has ideas and wants to work. Examples here show housing partnerships that we've had particular success with, long-term partnerships. And we've said this a million times today. Youth voice, really important to us right across the piece. And as we go for another 3 years' worth of funding, fingers crossed, from our Premier League shareholders, we'll be listening to young people as to how to develop it further. Digital is our next exploit, and how we communicate with them on that front.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Very much. Right, we've got a couple of minutes just for a couple of more questions before we break into lunch. I know you had your hand up earlier, so if I can go to the gentleman at the back on the left, that would be great.
Thank you. I'm Kieran. I'm on their London, which is the Youth Advisory Board for London Youth. I'm also one of the representatives on the National Youth Forum for British Cycling. I also gave evidence to the APPG inquiry that we heard the report from earlier. It's great to see the kids from Manchester talking about how we get young people involved in policy decision making. However, we have issues about that across the country, whether it's at a local level, such as at Hillingdon Slipstream as the cycle club I help out with, where I am the only under 18 to have ever been to any of our meetings, despite the fact that we usually invite 10 to every single one of our committee meetings. And we have struggled at a local level to get youth representation, but we also have a struggle at a national level. If we consider that only about 7% of young people actually vote in youth parliament elections, and those elections, certainly around where I am, are known for corruption and are known for essentially vote rigging, how do we ensure that we can replicate the success that you have had in Manchester in getting young people's voices out there?
Thank you. Did you want to respond first, or shall I ask Liz to respond?
It purely depends on the young people. We have 10 youth councils for each local authority that are really eager to get people in there, and we have 10 more organisations beside that that are also eager to have their place there. And it's because I think that we are making a real difference. It's not just a tokenistic role. We are working to make a difference. It's being seen, even in Tameside, it's being seen. We've got a strategy called the Voice of Child that we are giving training on to every single youth role, whether it's a paediatrician or just a standard youth worker, across Tameside, onto what young people expect. And because young people are seeing, oh yeah, we're being treated differently, they're more interested in engaging.
Brilliant, thank you. Liz, I know you wanted to come in.
I was just going to say, I mean, particularly on elections, it's quite interesting because we've just had Make Your Mark, and I'm very proud to say that in the North West for the 5th year running, we got a really high turnout of 38.8% across the region, 41.9% in Greater Manchester, and I think that's because there's a huge commitment in the North West to youth voice, and I think it's sort of that encouragement, it just builds on itself, and people share, people come together and support each other, and for me there's something about that collective working, you know, both amongst young people and youth workers supporting each other, not being in isolation, and building something that's maybe bigger than our individual parts.
Brilliant, thank you very much. And maybe one more question. I saw your hand has been up for a while as well.
Hi, my name's Sam. It doesn't really matter where I'm from. But I've got a question particularly for you two. How does it make you feel being part of a youth council and actually having a voice? And how does that impact other people, especially young people, that you know, and how does that change their perception of you?
Great question.
Go one by one because
Sorry, that was loads of questions.
Yeah, no, it was good. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. It's good for us as not only the next generation of the workforce, but as the next generation of the politicians, the next generation of everybody in this room, that we are empowered to be able to impact decision makers and have a voice, really. And that does not only impacts us, that we are the ones that voice it, but impacts, for example, for us, the young people of Tameside, that they can come to us, voice their issues, and know that we are going to take that forward, not only to a Tameside level, but to a Greater Manchester level or here at national level.
Emily? Yeah, it just makes me proud, really, that I've managed to get this far. It's something it sort of, I went to a youth club and then I got recruited into this from there. So it's youth workers have been a major part of this all along the thread, and it's just built into something I am so proud of. I never thought I'd be here as sort of a hobby. And what else? Oh yeah, back to like what other young people's perceptions. It's going back to that Voice of the Child strategy. We're making sure that they're being treated fairly with the 15 statements, that confidentiality is confidential, that people are going back and telling what's being passed on to, and that youth workers are communicating both ways. And even though we're not going around saying, oh yeah, we wrote that high, obviously around Tameside, but people are noticing it. We're getting a lot of feedback from the people that we're doing training to, and it is just changing, even if it's one little thing.
Fantastic. I think that's a real fitting response.